Most men think that chasing a woman is the only way to keep her interested. But what if I told you that the moment you start losing interest is the moment she starts thinking about you nonstop? Women are wired to desire what feels scarce, what seems unattainable. The second she senses that you're pulling away, whether intentionally or not, her mind goes into overdrive. She questions everything. Did she misjudge you? Is she losing something valuable? Why isn't she the center of your attention anymore? And suddenly, without warning, the roles reverse. She starts chasing you. Why? Because the human mind is designed to crave what it can't have. If you've ever wondered why a woman suddenly becomes more interested when you stop caring, then stick around. In this video, we'll break down exactly what happens in her mind when you lose interest, and how you can use this to your advantage. The moment you start losing interest in a woman, something powerful shifts in her mind. It's not just a simple reaction. It's a deep psychological trigger that activates her innate desire for what feels scarce. Human nature, and especially female psychology, is wired to place higher value on things that seem difficult to attain or are slipping away. This is known as the principle of scarcity, and it plays a massive role in attraction. When something is readily available, it's taken for granted. But the second that thing becomes uncertain or distant, the mind starts obsessing over it. Think about the last time you had unlimited access to something, a person, an opportunity, or even a simple luxury like your favorite food. In the beginning, it felt exciting. But over time, you became used to it. The excitement faded, and you probably stopped appreciating it the way you did at first. Now, imagine that same thing was suddenly taken away from you. It was no longer easy to get. Your brain would instantly start placing more value on it, making you want it more than ever before. This exact principle applies to women in attraction. When a man is always available, always chasing, and constantly showing interest, there's no challenge. There's no thrill. But the moment he stops, whether intentionally or not, that's when her mind starts to spiral. Women are naturally drawn to high-value men, and a high-value man never over-invests. When you begin to lose interest, you unknowingly signal to her that you are someone who has options, someone who isn't desperate for validation. This creates an irresistible pull. She begins to question what changed. Why isn't he giving me the same attention? Did I do something wrong? Is he interested in someone else? These questions don't just pass through her mind, they consume her. This is because attraction isn't just about looks or charm. It's deeply connected to emotions, and nothing creates stronger emotions than uncertainty. Men often think that to make a woman interested, they need to do more, send more texts, give more compliments, be more present. But in reality, doing less often has a far greater impact. The moment she feels that you are no longer as invested as before, her perception of you changes. She starts viewing you through a different lens, one that magnifies your value. Instead of being predictable and always available, you become mysterious, and mystery fuels attraction. But here's the key. This shift only happens when she perceives that your lack of interest is genuine. If she senses that you're playing a game or trying to manipulate her, it won't work. Women have a strong intuition when it comes to detecting insincerity, but when you truly start focusing on yourself, when you become genuinely indifferent to whether she stays or goes, that's when the magic happens. You stop chasing, and she starts wondering what she's missing out on. When a woman senses that you're losing interest, her brain triggers an immediate emotional response, one that is deeply rooted in psychology. Human beings by nature fear loss more than they appreciate gain. This is called loss aversion, a psychological principle that explains why people react more strongly to losing something than to gaining something of equal value. In relationships, this means that a woman will often realize how much she values you only when she feels like she's about to lose you. At first, she might not consciously recognize the shift. It starts subtly. Maybe you used to text her every day and now you don't. Maybe you used to be eager to make plans, but now you seem indifferent. She notices these small changes, and at first, she might brush them off, but then doubt creeps in. Women hate uncertainty when it comes to relationships, and when they feel like something is slipping through their fingers, their emotional response kicks into high gear. At this stage, she starts running mental simulations. She replays past conversations, analyzing your tone, your words, and your reactions. Was there a moment she missed? Did she say something wrong? She starts comparing your current behavior to how you were before. If you were once excited to talk to her, but now seem distant, it sends a strong subconscious signal. Something has changed. And in her mind, the idea that you might no longer be as interested as before creates emotional panic. This panic is not just about losing you, it's about the unknown. Women are wired to seek emotional security in relationships, and when a man starts pulling away, it disrupts that sense of security. The irony is that this uncertainty, this emotional discomfort, makes her think about you even more. The less attention you give her, the more she craves it. It's like a psychological itch that she can't scratch. And the more unanswered questions she has about you, the more her mind fixates on finding the answers. But here's what makes it even more powerful. Her pride and ego get involved. If she was the one who originally felt in control, if she thought she had you wrapped around her finger, then your sudden disinterest feels like a rejection, and rejection stings. She starts wondering, how could he lose interest in me? What does he have going on that's more important? Is there someone else? These questions don't just stay in her head, they create emotional turmoil. At this stage, her reaction can go in different directions. Some women might try to play it cool, acting like they don't care, but deep down, they're waiting for you to notice them again. Others will take a more direct approach, suddenly reaching out, testing the waters to see if they still have your attention. Some might even get defensive, pretending that they never cared in the first place. But make no mistake, if she's reacting, she's thinking about you. This emotional shift is what flips the power dynamic. She goes from feeling secure and in control to feeling uncertain and desperate for validation. And this is where you hold all the cards. As her mind spirals with uncertainty, something fascinating happens. Her attraction towards you intensifies. See, attraction isn't just about how much she likes you in the present moment. It's also deeply tied to perceived value and challenge. When you were fully engaged, when you were showing interest, she felt secure. But now, with your attention slipping away, she starts to question her position in your life. And the moment she feels like she might be losing you, your value in her eyes skyrockets. This is because people naturally want what they can't have. Scarcity creates demand. It's why luxury brands remain exclusive, why rare items feel more valuable, and why the moment something becomes uncertain, we crave it even more. The same psychological principle applies to relationships. If she believed she had you, if she assumed your attention was guaranteed, she might have taken it for granted. But now, with your energy pulling back, she starts seeing you in a completely different light. At a subconscious level, this shift triggers the chase instinct. Women are wired to be attracted to men they perceive as high value, and nothing signals high value more than a man who isn't desperate for validation. When you were overly available, she had no reason to fight for your attention. But now, with you seemingly detached, she starts to wonder if she ever had as much control over you as she thought. And that uncertainty makes you appear even more desirable. Another psychological trigger that kicks in is the reward system. When a woman is used to getting your attention and suddenly it's no longer there, her brain starts associating your attention with a reward. It's like an unpredictable slot machine. Sometimes she gets a response, sometimes she doesn't. And unpredictability creates obsession. The less predictable you become, the more she desires the reward of your engagement. This is exactly why toxic relationships are so addictive. When affection is given inconsistently, the craving for it intensifies. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Not only does her attraction increase, but her mind also starts romanticizing you. She starts remembering all the good moments, all the things that made her feel something. The flaws she once noticed, they start fading into the background. The things that may have annoyed her before, suddenly, they don't seem like a big deal. This is because her emotions are now driving her perception, and emotions tend to amplify the positive while diminishing the negative. At this stage, she's looking for signs. Maybe she checks if you viewed her story. Maybe she brings up an old inside joke to see if you'll engage. She might even test you, throwing out subtle bait to see if you'll react. But here's the thing, the more mysterious you remain, the more her curiosity grows. She wants to understand what changed. Did you meet someone else? Did something happen? And most importantly, is there still a way for her to pull you back in? This is the moment where her subconscious desire starts working against her. Because instead of her being the one in control, she's now the one chasing validation. She might not even realize it at first, but her mind is working overtime to try and bring back the version of you that was fully engaged. And that desperation, that uncertainty, it's exactly what makes her attraction to you stronger than ever. As her subconscious desire intensifies, she begins experiencing a roller coaster of emotions. This isn't just mild curiosity anymore, it's emotional turbulence that she struggles to control. One moment, she's telling herself she doesn't care, that she's fine without you. The next, she's overanalyzing every little detail, your online status, your last interaction, the way you used to look at her. At this stage, the fear of losing you becomes very real, and the more uncertain she feels, the stronger the emotional attachment grows. Uncertainty is a psychological amplifier of emotions. It's why cliffhangers in movies leave people hooked. It's why unsolved mysteries keep people obsessed for years. And it's why, when you stop showing interest, she suddenly can't stop thinking about you. This fear of loss isn't just about you as a person, it's about what you represented in her life. Maybe you were her safe space, her validation, or simply a source of emotional stimulation. But now, without you engaging the way you used to, she's left with a void. And that void? It forces her to reflect. She starts questioning things she never questioned before. Did I misread his feelings? Was he ever really into me? Did I take him for granted? These thoughts create internal conflict, and the more she wrestles with them, the more emotionally invested she becomes. Now, here's where things get even more intense. She starts creating narratives in her mind. If you haven't been reaching out, if you seem unbothered, she begins to assume that maybe there's someone else, even if there isn't. Jealousy kicks in. And jealousy is one of the most powerful emotional triggers in human psychology. The idea that you could be moving on, that someone else could be getting the attention she once had, is unbearable to her ego. Women are competitive by nature, especially when it comes to high-value men. If she perceives you as someone desirable, the thought of losing you to another woman ignites her competitive instincts. This is when she might start posting things meant to catch your attention. Pictures looking her best, cryptic quotes, or even indirect attempts to provoke a reaction. She's not doing this just for fun, she's doing it to see if she still has power over you. But here's the key. If you react, she wins. The moment she sees that her little test made you engage, she feels reassured, she feels back in control, and just like that, the emotional roller coaster stops. She doesn't need to chase anymore. But if you don't react, if you remain indifferent, detached, and unbothered, the anxiety deepens. The emotional intensity reaches its peak. At this point, she's desperate for clarity, and when emotions run high, logic takes a back seat. That's when she might do something impulsive, text you out of nowhere, bring up an old memory, or even create drama just to force a response. The fear of losing you has transformed into something more, a psychological need to regain control. And the more you maintain your mysterious, self-sufficient demeanor, the more powerful your presence becomes in her mind. At this stage, the emotional chaos in her mind reaches a critical point. She's been holding onto her pride, convincing herself that she's fine, that she doesn't need to reach out. But deep down, she's struggling. The tension has been building for days, maybe even weeks, and she's now at a psychological breaking point. This is where desperation starts creeping in. See, when a woman starts feeling like she's losing power over you, her mind goes into overdrive. She starts replaying every past conversation, every moment that made her feel special, and every sign she might have missed. This is where regret begins to form. Regret that she didn't appreciate you when she had your attention. Regret that she thought you'd always be there. Regret that she let her ego dictate her actions. This internal regret fuels a new kind of anxiety, one that demands action. The need to regain control, to confirm that she still has a hold on you, becomes overwhelming. And in this emotional state, rational thinking is gone. She's no longer strategizing or playing games. She's reacting purely on impulse. This is when you'll start noticing subtle but deliberate moves from her. Maybe she, accidentally, likes an old post of yours. Maybe she views your story but doesn't say anything. Maybe she posts something sentimental, a song lyric or a quote that seems oddly directed at you. These are her feelers. She's testing the waters, hoping for a response. But here's where most men make the mistake. They take the bait too soon. The moment they see even a slight sign of interest, they jump back in, showing excitement, over-explaining, or chasing her again. And just like that, she regains control. The power dynamic resets. She no longer feels that emotional tension because now she knows you're still there, still interested, still available. But if you don't react, if you remain distant, indifferent, and continue living your life as if she doesn't exist, that's when true panic sets in. This is where she realizes she no longer has the influence over you that she once did, and that realization, it's unbearable. At this point, she has two options: swallow her pride and reach out directly, which might come in the form of a casual text, a question, or even a full-on apology. Create drama to force a reaction, whether it's starting rumors, showing up in places you frequent, or even trying to make you jealous with someone else. Either way, the power dynamic has shifted completely. She's now the one chasing clarity. She's the one seeking reassurance. She's the one feeling emotionally unsettled. And that's exactly where you want her to be. This is where everything changes. Up until now, she's been living in a state of denial, convincing herself that you still care, that you'll eventually come back, that this distance is just temporary. But then, something happens. A moment of clarity hits her like a ton of bricks. Maybe she checks your social media and sees that you're genuinely happy, thriving, and unbothered. Maybe she hears from mutual friends that you're dating someone new or focusing on yourself. Maybe she simply realizes that too much time has passed and you haven't given her even the slightest reaction. And that's when it finally clicks. She lost you. Now, let's be clear. This moment isn't just about missing you. It's deeper than that. It's about her ego taking a massive hit. She thought she had control over the situation, that she could pull back and still have you wrapped around her finger whenever she wanted. But now, she's forced to face the truth. You're no longer affected by her, and that realization is devastating. See, women don't just crave love and attention. They crave significance. They want to feel like they have an impact on the men in their lives, and when you take that away, it messes with their sense of self-worth. Suddenly, she's not just wondering if she should reach out. She's questioning her own attractiveness, her ability to keep a man's interest, her value in your life. This is when you'll notice one of two extreme reactions from her. She completely retreats. If she's the type who's too proud to admit defeat, she'll disappear entirely, pretending she never cared in the first place, even though deep down she's burning with frustration. She might even try to convince herself that she doesn't want you anymore, but the emotional scars will stay with her for a long time. She goes all in to win you back. If she's emotionally invested enough, she'll try to reset things by reappearing in your life, acting as if nothing happened, suddenly being overly nice, or even straight up confessing that she misses you. She might start sending random messages, reminiscing about old times, or trying to provoke a reaction out of you by making you jealous. Either way, the tables have turned. The power dynamic is no longer in her hands. She's the one feeling the loss now, not you. And the best part, you never had to chase, beg, or convince her of anything. At this point, you have a choice. You can decide whether you still want her in your life, or you can walk away knowing that you've done what most men fail to do, make her realize your value by simply losing interest. At this point, everything has changed. You've taken yourself out of the equation, and now she's the one feeling the void. But here's the real kicker. This isn't just about her missing you. It's about you stepping into a completely different level of power and self-respect. See, when you walk away and genuinely lose interest, you're not just playing a game. You're signaling something far deeper. You're proving that your happiness isn't tied to her validation. And this is one of the most attractive things a man can do. Most guys spend their entire lives in relationships seeking approval, chasing after women, and bending over backward to keep them interested. But when you stop caring, when you move on without hesitation, you become rare. This is why the men who don't chase often end up having the most options. They're not running around trying to convince women of their worth. They simply live in a way that makes women recognize it on their own. And let's not forget one important truth. People always want what they can't have. The moment you become unavailable, your value skyrockets in her mind. Suddenly, she's replaying every moment she had with you, questioning her choices, and wondering why she let someone like you go. But here's where most men mess up. They cave. They get a random text from her after weeks of silence and instantly respond, undoing all the progress they made. They get pulled back in by nostalgia, thinking that if she reaches out, it must mean something deep. It doesn't. More often than not, she's reaching out because she wants to know she still has a grip on you, and if you give in too soon, she'll lose interest all over again. That's why the real win isn't getting her back. It's realizing you don't need her back. Because when you truly lose interest, you've already won. You've freed yourself from the emotional chains of uncertainty, from the need for external validation, from the cycle of proving your worth. And that freedom is priceless. So if she comes back, the question isn't, how do I get her to stay? The question is, do I even want her anymore? Because once you reach this level of self-respect and inner confidence, you'll start seeing women and relationships differently. You'll stop chasing, you'll stop settling, and most importantly, you'll start attracting people who actually value you from the start. That's the real power of losing interest. It shifts everything in your favor, not just with one woman, but in life itself. And that's exactly why the strongest move you can ever make isn't to chase, convince, or beg. It's to walk away and mean it. If this video gave you a new perspective, make sure to subscribe for more.